Greetings, I hope you're well. My name is Jeffrey Angapa, and today I'm going to read to you the first chapter of my book, The Silence Between the Stars. If I may roughly classify it, I'd say that Silence Between the Stars is science fiction, but there are slight elements of fantasy, and on the whole, there's a mix of different kinds of work in it. And I'll leave it to the reader to make sense of what genre it falls under and what exactly it is. Um, all right, enough of my rambling. Let the book speak for itself. Chapter 1, A City Altered. Simone cried out, and, still clutching her hand, I turned and looked into her eyes. What's happening? What's going on? I don't know, Simone, but we'll be all right. At length both the flickering of our surroundings and the force on our bodies ceased. The room grew brighter, but had an unsubstantial appearance to it. We looked round, Simone saying, Is it over now? I got up from beside her and walked around the room, inspecting the bookcases, the books, and the tables. Everything seemed all right at first, and I began to doubt whether it had not all been a dream, but then noticed that the faint, almost imperceptible flickering was beginning once more. The effect was steady and quite bewildering. Books, furniture, the surrounding room, all flickering brighter and then dimmer, with startling precipitation and an unexpected randomness, making it appear that everything was fading out of back into existence repeatedly. Come on, let's get out of here fast. She nodded her head, and I got behind her chair and began wheeling it out of the room. The flickering, for want of a better word, went on in the main hall, people walking here and there like spectres, even passing through others as if they were not present. But the building and its bookshelves were more or less the same, except for the books, which fluctuated rapidly along the shelves. At times the library appeared older, without any trace of newer technology like computers. At other times it appeared closer to our time. Simone was stunned. I shrugged my shoulders. No one appeared to pay any attention to us. It was as if we did not exist. Making our way out of City Hall, we next beheld a sight that, in a word, astonished us. We went forth slowly, casting round our weary gazes in disbelief, for there, all round us, was a Durban utterly unlike the one we were familiar with. It was dark and gloomy, and clouds filled the sky, perpetually churning, as if something sinister were looming behind them. City Hall, glorious City Hall, was still in its place, but now it was much changed in an uncanny way that made it seem nightmarish and contorted. Its doors and windows were no more square of shape, but distorted, uneven, and horrible to behold. The shape was all off, and shadows were cast in a distorted, unnatural way. Good God, I cried, struggling to believe what I was seeing. What happened to City Hall? The blood drained from Simone's ever-bright face. Fear had taken hold of her, and she shook her head in disbelief. Is this all a nightmare? She said softly, clutching my hand tightly. I don't know, said I, pressing her hand in return and faintly smiling. But I promise you everything will be fine. Let's go. Come on. The other buildings shared a family resemblance with City Hall, standing at odd angles, their walls no more parallel, their windows twisted out of shape. Shafts of light colored the ground at places in zigzagging shapes, straight but wide lines, looking as if each shaft had been painted there and had stood there from time immemorial. Queer sounds filled the air perpetually, the sounds of approaching and receding. We walked on, looking round in amazement as well as fear, and went past the front of City Hall, opposite the World War II memorials, where the benches were. As one might expect, the people who populated this dismal incarnation of Durban were of quite an unexpected appearance themselves, besides a constant passing to and fro of flickering people, whose style of dress was more like ours but of earlier decades. The rest were not flickering at all, and were clad in rather a Victorian fashion. At any rate, they all seemed unsettling somehow and even unnatural. These people, observed Simone, look as if they've sprung out of a nightmarish vision of a Dickens novel. And I do not think I could have put it any better than that. I noticed that the flickering folk were oblivious to us, whereas the Victorian masses were seemingly aware of our presence, judging from occasional glances thrown our way. We were going on when a short, stocky man with shoulder-length hair but balding head stopped us. "You there," said he, narrowing his eyes in suspicion and tightening the grip on his cane. "Yes, you two. What in the blazes are you two doing out here?" Simone and I looked at each other and I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I suppose I ought to start from the beginning, so let me go back a bit. All the unexpected singular events we witnessed and were a part of, the places we reached, if places they could even be called, the slow workings of time, when even time itself was thrown into doubt. All these and more are a strain even to set down in the right words, being fleeting to the touch, but I will try my best, setting down what we saw, felt, and witnessed. It may seem jumbled at times, even nonsensical, but it was the characters themselves who were the glue that bound the story together across the reaches of existence, when even the orders of space and time seemed uncertain and in danger of crumbling. It began one day in November. The year was 20 something, and the day, I believe, was the 14th. Well, it did not quite begin that day, but the story does. It had been raining that morning, pouring all round. Not that heavily, I remember, but bearing a pleasant, tranquil sound. Being the middle of November and the last 2 weeks of spring, summer was around the corner. Durban's climate has often been classified as subtropical, quite pleasant on the whole and generally warm all the year round. Situated in the southern hemisphere, the city's winters take place in the middle of the year and bring little to no rain. Skies are usually clear, and, despite a slight, bracing chill, winter is rather warm and not particularly cold, though a resident of the city may say otherwise. By September, spring creeps over the land and the city grows warmer. Skies get cloudier, the air hazier, reaching an almost dreamlike drowsiness by December, and rain begins to fall. I do not know why, but the climate of spring, that of Durban at any rate, speaks to my spirit in a strange, almost nostalgic fashion. What is it about those cloudy skies, or that hazy air? I suppose different seasons put the mind and imagination in different moods. By the time December draws over Durban, the mood changes yet again, possessing a sort of dreamlike quality, or at any rate, that is how I perceive it. Quite likely others feel differently. Well, I see I have strayed far from the topic at hand, giving an account of climate and other matters of little moment, so let me return from Durban from December back to November 14th, a Tuesday, when the clock above the post office, once the old town hall, was striking 9 o'clock. I was soaked already and making my way past the workshop, a sort of small shopping mall, and past the vendors of the so-called flea market, and the rain beat continuously down. Still early, I thought. The library only opens at 10. Opposite me, across West Street, rose a marvelous piece of architecture that was City Hall, built in the 19th century, supposedly a replica of the one in Belfast and the present Town Hall of Durban. The old Town Hall, on my side of the road, now serving as a post office building. Whenever I saw City Hall, I almost always admired it, and today was no exception. Though the city was drenched in rain and dirt, I found myself muttering under my breath, "Oh boy, that sure is a sight." Drawing up before West Street, the most important road in the CBD proper, running from one end of it to the other, I waited to cross. When the vehicles had all drawn to a stop, and it was safe for us pedestrians, we crossed the road, and once I got to the other side, I went left, then turned right, going down the left side of City Hall, past the car park, and, turning right again and walking a little, got to the Smith Street entrance of the edifice. People were standing hither and thither, stamping their shoes to get mud off, waiting for the library to open, everyone trying to shelter themselves so that the least amount of rain would hit them. A great many were students, dressed up smartly as youngsters often are, and more often than not, glued to the screens of their smartphones. Indeed, the majority seemed more intent on the content of those screens than chatting with their peers. though I expect it was owing also to the natural shyness people possess. And so, instead of standing next to others without saying a word, it was easier to pretend one was busy on that other world of the phone. Or perhaps they were busy. I do not pretend to know. At any rate, the older folk tended to look round and seemed a bit puzzled that people could stare so long at phones. Some wore raincoats, others carried umbrellas, and many bore small bags of books in their hands. After wiping my hair with a handkerchief, to little effect, I looked round, smiling at any whose gaze chanced to fall on me. It was not long before the clock above post office struck 10 o'clock. Once the doors opened, people started gushing into City Hall, making their way to the library or the museum. The Natural Science Museum being on the second floor, the library on the first. I made my way past the guards and, entering the library, went to the other side and looked for Mr. Ngnobo. I had been an almost daily frequenter of the library for years and knew the place pretty well. I no sooner reached the other side than I saw him directing his steps down one of the aisles, paper in hand, looking for some book. And calling out to him, he drew to a halt, saying, "Oh, you're here early. Good morning. You all right?" "Morning, sir. I'm all right, thanks. And yourself?" "Yeah, it's good to hear. I just got a bit soaked. You know the weather forecast. Wrong half the time. Supposed to be sunny today. Anyway, the rain's lovely." "You don't carry an umbrella?" "No, sir, I don't." "Why not?" "You'll catch a cold." He paused for a few moments. "So you want to volunteer, eh? Are you sure?" "Yes," said I, nodding my head. "I love this library and always wanted to work in one." "All right, come with me, and I'll show you the register. You've got to fill it in each day." So, proceeding down the aisle, we reached a sort of passage or nook that led to another office on the right. A small table stood there with some papers scattered over it. Visible were names, times, and signatures. "You must fill this register in each day. It's proof you volunteered. Just write your name and time, you know, the time you get here and the time you go, and then sign in this column. If you go for a job, it's proof, so don't forget it. All right?" "Yeah, you can sign you." "Actually, we've got another volunteer who started yesterday. She's here already. That's her name over there." "Another volunteer?" Looking a bit closer, I saw a name written in a neat and curling script. It read just Simone. No surname next to it. "Simone," I thought to myself, as I was filling in my own details. "I wonder who she is." Mr. Ignobo then asked Charles, one of the two shelvers at Central Lending, to show me the shelves, as he put it. Having been a perpetual patron of Central Lending for years, I knew pretty well where most of the books were kept, but Charles and I went round the library as a matter of course, from one end of it to the other, and he explained many a thing to me, that biographies were kept here, literature in that aisle, large print in that room, westerns over there, romance that side, and so on and so forth. Charles was a good-natured, friendly fellow, whom I usually greeted whenever I saw, and, not being over fond of work, was more than happy to give me the tour of the place, which he did with gusto, and which meant a good hour of talking and no work being done. In that respect, I do not much blame him, for there were only two shelves in all, he and another gentleman, and, all in all, the books had grown rather out of hand. Just a single glance at one of those trolleys next to the scramble, brimming with books, was enough to strike fear into the heart of a shelver. However, I was brand new, and launched upon the task with relish, getting myself an empty trolley, and gathering all the 800s books concerning literature, my favorite topic at the time, began my first day of volunteering. The hours passed rapidly, and as I set the books on the shelves, which were in a dismal mess, I thought frequently of Simone, wondering who she was and when I should see her. Already 3 o'clock had come and gone, and there was still no sign of her. I wanted to ask Charles, but never got a chance, owing to his being on the other side of the library, tackling biographies in large print. Nor could I ask Sizwe, the other shelver, who was further away among the junior books. All in all, she filled my thoughts a great deal. I wondered who she was and how she looked. I was puzzled by the fact that Simone was not a common South African name. At length, however, I forgot all about that, helping a few patrons find the books they were looking for. One student, going up and down the literature aisle to no avail, was searching for a copy of Twelfth Night, which was easily found, the call number being 822 Shack. But the other patron, looking for certain books on arts and crafts, had to wait a long time, half an hour perhaps, before we stumbled upon the book she sought. Its title no less than Best Knitting Patterns of the 90s, Scandinavian edition, from Oslo to Uppsala and the lands between them. Time went on, and seeing that it was 4 o'clock, I decided to head home. After filling in my time and wishing Charles and the others goodbye, I directed my steps homeward, and much to my surprise, it was still raining. All their work had done me a great deal of good. I felt a pleasant fatigue running through my body, while my head was filled with thoughts of book numbers and Simone. She had signed out at 3 o'clock. I felt quite disappointed not having seen her, but shrugging my shoulders, I thought that tomorrow would be another day. Alright, thanks for listening. That's the end of the first chapter, A City Altered. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Take care.